Welcome back. We are about ready to start refining the hair now. Okay, so I'm sitting here on level 7 with my model, and I'm just going to add a new layer for the hair modifications. And it'll just pop in there, and I'll name it something clever like hair. How about that? Shocking. Okay, now I'm just going to do a little select here. So really, when we get to creating the volumes of the hair, there's no real secrets to it. You can see where we've gotten to already, and a lot of what we have here is just mass, right? So this has just been me sketching a little bit beforehand, just so that he has something to fill in the volume of his cranium. But when it actually comes to refining the forms, really what we have to do is we have to look at the reference and really kind of see how his hair is, what it consists of, really. And there's nothing too shocking about it. It's all pulled back into a ponytail, which is nice for us. The ponytail's a little messy, so that's going to be a bit hard. But really what we have is we have wavy hair that starts and pretty much goes the length of the side of his head, right? So the secret to the workflow is to try to get volumes in, and you can use lazy mouse or not. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I'm just essentially kind of running these long strands right now. And clay tubes is a good way to start, although you'll see me in the time lapse switch back and forth between clay tubes and standard brush, and with lazy mouse on, lazy mouse off, and different alphas. Right, so I'm just going to give you guys a quick overview of how I generally kind of approach these sorts of things. Right, so just kind of building a little bit of the flow of the forms. About this area, you can see that we've already indicated it a little bit. There's a lot of hair that gets pulled up to his second ponytail. Yes, 2 ponytails. Takes a lot of man to pull off 2 ponytails, but strangely, this guy's able to do it. So here we go. Those main kind of forms just flowing up, diving in and out of each other. And then often I'll go in from here with a standard brush and turn lazy mouse on with kind of a medium length, and really start to work on some of the contours and the way things curve into each other, right? And what we're trying to do as we sculpt hair is we're trying to sell the idea that there's depth, right? That things are overhanging each other and diving in between other strands, so that there's should be really deep sections and really shallow sections. Right, so right here I'm just kind of trying to work in an overhang, right, and then I'll pop the surface out a little bit. So it really looks like these two are kind of interlocking. So this is going in between, then I'll even pop this one out. And as I'm kind of addressing these strands individually, I try to put a little bit of gesture into the marks, not just keep them tubes, but actually try to get them to spiral a little bit over each other. And that ends up being kind of, as you're running along the length of a tube of hair, you don't want to work perpendicular. You kind of want to work, or you don't want to work parallel to the strand. You want to work more in a kind of a diagonal, which makes it look like the hair is kind of folding over on itself. For example, in here, like a diagonal or an S shape across the hair. And then some stuff coming out from under. Right, and with just a couple marks like that, it starts to twist. Right, and then when we get a little further, we'll put some alpha on our brush and really start to make that spiral. Okay, so just kind of pushing these around. Also, you can kind of get in at a larger scale and get the curviness in, which is kind of curving in and out. So just popping up sections of it and leaving other sections down. Essentially make it wavy. And so while you're working through this type of exercise, which I actually think hair is really fun to sculpt, at a certain point you're going to have to leave the comfort, if it is comfortable, of reality, which is just having the reference in front of you and just slaving over it, because at a certain point there is no possible way that you can sculpt hair, right, as it appears in a photograph, right? So you really just have to kind of develop your own style for this, capture the essence of what the hair is doing, and then just make it work, right? And that's, I think I probably have my own particular way of doing hair that I've developed, and is probably influenced a lot by like my appreciation for Art Nouveau and all those kind of really kind of spiraling curvatures and those sorts of things. And I think everybody probably, if you do enough hair, you'll develop your own style. All right, so all of these are just going to be kind of just kind of flowing over each other, a little bit of interlocking. And right now they're actually quite distinct and separate, but eventually I think I'll unify them a little bit with some clay brush and kind of make them less distinct. Okay, so you can see that we're kind of getting things to have some form of their own and some depth. And I'll just continue with this for a little bit. Move your brush, move your light around if you need to really see clearly how some of the forms are shaping up. And we're still kind of in the blocking stage right now, so I'm not too worried about getting in with fine details. I just want to get the forms established, the big shapes, and then we'll go in with an alpha here in a second, and I'll show you how to just put a little more life into it. Like anything, if you zoom far enough out, you don't need the details that we're going to put in coming up. You just really need that. You just need the forms, the depth, and the large shapes really to kind of sell it. Any details are really just for the close-up. Okay, so let's see where we're at. So at this point I've kind of gotten my standard brush a little bit tighter and just kind of starting to put in some big kind of transitional hairs popping out. And again, this is kind of sculptural hair, which is the best we can hope for. Okay, so this line down here still appears really straight. So if we just kind of run a few strokes along him at different intervals, make it look like something's happening there. Okay, I'm going to leave that bit right there so you can see that we've kind of established some volume, got some depth in, Again, carve depth in where you need it, in between locks of hair. In fact, you can go in really deep if you turn lazy mouse off and just kind of dig in certain areas. You see also, as I kind of start refining this, that we are really at the limit of our poly count on the hair. And the mesh, the base mesh that you're using, has a bit of an optimization to it in the hair, in that it gets a little bit sparser towards the back, which is good and bad depending on what kind of hair the person's going to have. But you can see these polys are probably twice as big as these, so you're going to lose resolution back here, which is good and bad. I mean, you can pull, there's a number of ways you can work around it. You can pull the hair off and have it be its own subtool, or you can just work at this resolution and consider it good, or you can do a local subdivide of just the hair area to get it to increase in resolution. I think for this exercise, I'm just going to leave it as is, though, because we capture most of the form that we need. Okay, so from there, what I'll do, I'll turn the polyframe off, is I'll typically go in with, say, alpha 61, or occasionally I use alpha 54, or even more occasionally I'll make my own with maybe 2 or 3 rows instead of 5. But these tend to do good enough for me just out of the box. So I generally use them, and I'll use them with both the standard and the clay tubes. And with the clay tubes, what you get is a slightly different effect in that it does kind of has the filling effect, right? So it heals areas that are kind of broken, like that area here where I have these hatching marks going. Standard brush would just walk right over those and pop all the imperfections out. If you stroke along it with the clay brush a couple times, it will more or less reduce those artifacts. Okay, and I think I have lazy mouse turned off. I'll turn it on, but I'll put a small radius. Okay, and here you can see that I'm just kind of following the patterns that have been established by what I've done with the standard brush, which is those kind of curves and those twists. You can see how this one is spiraling over on itself a couple times. And this one's going down, and there's some hair coming out here. This is probably just one big straight locket of hair tucking back. And you have to be careful about making anything too perfectly straight, right? You kind of always want something that's slightly oblique. Otherwise, it will look quickly artificial, right? So that's all my strokes generally are slightly off axis. Look at that. Look at those nasty polygons popping in and out there. I kind of wish I had more resolution, but it looks okay from a distance. It looks okay when you're actually just looking at even a full view of the head, so it's not a big concern. Okay, so look at this little piece, how the hair is coming over, diving in here. So I'm just going to cut in with the clay brush, stroke over up here. And you can see some of the forms that I set up earlier. And I might actually take these and really accentuate these with, I'll go actually with the standard brush, no alpha, and really just try to get some volume into them. Like this is a big locket of hair. I'm going to undo this, and I'll probably use a little bit less resolution. Just want to really pop it out, almost to get it to look like it's curling under, right? So we want this to be kind of a ring, as close to a ring as we can get with the topology that we have, right? Because that it really is the constraint with all this stuff, is that you can't go too far because the polygons will break. We could Dynamesh, but that comes at a cost as well, right? So we're balancing all our techniques right now and going with the least objectionable one, which is just to continue with the base mesh as we have it. So I'll just do some strokes like this, and you can see that pattern looks pretty regular. It actually looks all right, but I'm going to go in and put some accents into it. All of these things that I'm putting in, I'm just kind of go in with a standard brush and really kind of pop things out. Okay, so with standard brush, probably actually put on a tight alpha, right? So something like 35 with standard brush will give you a nice focused brush for pulling or pushing hair fibers. Just adjust my light a little bit. And this back edge here is probably where we want to really cut in and make this look like spiraling over something. And also the front edge, right? We want this to kind of have a sense of curl. I don't know if that's going to work, but kind of just cutting it here, making this really embedded. Where do we go with this? We just make this curl up on itself. Why not? Okay, that curl is okay, but that doesn't look like a curl just yet. We need to pop this out a little bit, make it a little bit rounder. And I'm going to use the move brush in. There's a little kind of escape lock of hair. And from here, I would just continue to do more of the same, right? Find all these little transitional planes and accent them, right? If this hair is going over top of this one, I want to really give it a distinct edge and a kind of a distinct body so that we see that it is, in fact, going over top. And clay tubes is great for that as well, right? That will also really help things overlap each other. Don't know what's in here. This might be a continuation. So if we have that in place and we want to do something in here, a continuation of this underlock, we can just mask that off really quickly to protect it. Something like that. So you kind of see how things quickly add up, right? And you can quickly build up form and volume. There's a risk involved in kind of this particular technique of having too many kind of unified tubes of hair that are kind of independent and too interlocking. And so often I'll go in and I'll just try to reduce those a little bit. And it can be something just like a clay brush filling in some of the gaps, not to totally emaciate the work we've done and destroy it, but Sometimes it looks a little bit nicer when it's less less tubular. So we'll just see what happens here. So you can see those that kind of unifies those a bit. And we could probably do the same in here. 3 is probably too little. Yeah, just fill in some of that space. Okay, let me just show the whole figure, and I will turn my layer on and off, and you can see where we've come from and where we've gotten to in a relatively short amount of time. I'll save you guys any more painstaking watching at this slow pace, and I'll show you the full time lapse of the hair. Just turn this off. And so I'll store it as a morph target. So that's it. A little bit more volume. It should read at a distance. And it does. I think that does pretty well. For a quick setup. And obviously you would take similar technique, and you don't really want to work into one area like I've done here in isolation. You really need to treat the entire volume of hair on the whole head similarly. So as I was setting up the clay tubes all the way over here in the individual strands, you need to work your way around and do it on both sides, because there's a risk. If you do one side one day and come back and decide to do the other side the second day, that your technique will change. And it will look materially different, just because you're putting your strokes down with slightly different setup, different gesture, different interlocking, different size, and it's a danger, and it's happened to me before. So I try to lay everything out and go through it kind of a little bit systematically, at least try to finish it all to the same degree in a single session, and then pick up the whole thing and update it all the next time as well. Okay, hope that helps. A little primer on sculpting hair. Let's see, I've just hidden him so we can't morph target, but that's it. So enjoy. You'll see me work up the whole head of hair in the time lapse, and then we'll talk about strands and how to work on the bun and all that stuff, or the ponytails, in another video. Okay, thanks.